I don't think we've seen something like this from him before. It's blue, green, white. Basically, it's similar to Reanimator, and it plays cards like Fiend Hunter, Restoration Angel, Acidic Slime, Thragtusk, Angel Serenity, which we've seen him play before. But instead of Umberto Rights, he's going for more of a clone strategy.
Yep.
He plays one Cackling Counterpart, which is kind of interesting, 2 copies of Clone and 2 copies of Progenitor Mimic, along with 1 Aetherling.
Right.
So he's basically, it's more or less a Reanimator shell with the green-white cards, but instead of black for Umberto Rights Grizzly Savage, he's playing cards like Aetherling and Clone. Kind of interesting strategy here, because you'd imagine the clone effects are probably really good in the mirror. So interesting. It's not technically a Reanimator deck, but very similar feel to it.
It feels like it. I mean, one of the things I like about the look of this deck, one of his cards, Garruk Relentless, amongst his few spells. There aren't very many spells in this deck. A Garruk Relentless can go, once it's flipped, search up a Progenitor Mimic, which is pretty exciting, to being able to be essentially acidic sliming every turn or Thragtusking every turn. You know, just an endless line of Thragtusks and Slimes is a pretty scary sight. I'm curious, does he have any Cavern of Souls? If so, how many?
He has 1 Cavern of Souls in his main deck, and he has 1 in his sideboard. So similar to his Reanimator strategy, doesn't play too many Caverns main. Kind of goes for a little more green mana sources because he has cards like Avacyn Pilgrim and Arbor Elf in his deck. So he wants to make sure he can hit a green mana source untapped.
Right. Now his opponent, Jake Cohen, is with junk tokens. And this is actually, Jake right there is using the powers of his mind to turn off the lights. But Jake is playing a true junk deck. And when I say by true junk, I mean this is a beatdown deck here. He's got 4 Loxodon Smiters. And then on top of that, tons of tokens. Lingering Souls, Advent of the Worm, Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. And he is just, Selesnya Charm as well, he is just really ready to try to go some beats here. Very little disruption though in his main deck. His sideboard has, let's see, in terms of what can disrupt a acidic sliming creature, he's got some creature removal. He's got Putrefies, he's got Sever the Bloodlines, he's got Devour Flesh, so he can try to interrupt the endless clones if that comes down to it.
Yeah, but again, not too much removal, and the fact that he has to deal with clones out of Brian, along with cards like Fiend Hunter, which are actually really good against a token-based strategy. Interesting to see whether or not BBD can actually win this fairly easily game 1 and 2.
Now, if you're wondering how come Braun-Duin is already up a game, it's not that we didn't decide to broadcast it for you. It's that apparently Jake Cohen has been awarded a game 1 loss for a deck registration error. Jake Cohen is a local player here to Nashville, plays at Next Level Games, and is well known for playing rogue decks.
So it looks like he's got pretty much all the Naya lands in play, and not sure if is this a different deck list, or it looks like he's playing something a little. I'm not sure if that's Jake Cohen or not.
Yeah. What we're looking at here is we're going to find out a couple of things, whether or not we have the correct deck list. It is Braun-Duin. We can look at his face. We can look at his face and be like, that's Braun-Duin. But we might not actually have Jake Cohen. We might have another player here.
So looks like we've got turn 1 Pilgrim from Brian. Brian's obviously on the draw because of Jake's game loss. So
this is Alan Cohen, not to be confused with Jake Cohen, but we did that anyway.
The Cohen family is in attendance today.
Yeah, we've got all of them here, including the filmmakers. So
yes, the Cohen brothers. And so Brian off to a pretty slow start, just the Pilgrim, no turn 2 play. And here we have, well, hello. It looks like that is a Primordial
Hydra. That card is awesome. If you don't know what it is, it's green, X. Put X +1/+1 tokens on the Hydra, and then every upkeep, its controller's upkeep, it doubles the number of tokens. Now, at a certain point, that thing will get so big, it'll give itself trample once it gets up to, I believe, 10 tokens, or is it 5? I forget.
I believe it's probably 5 tokens, but it looks like it's going away because of Garruk Relentless.
Oh,
Garruk pretty effective against 2 power or less creatures because it stays in play, and now it's flipped. And like you mentioned, once he's able to start, once the Garruk is flipped, he can search for clone effects if he chooses.
Now that's actually one of those really nice little features of Garruk, is having these utility creatures. Thragtusk is an obvious card that is powerful in its own right, but sometimes you just need to actually start tutoring up a slime or tutoring up a specific card to answer a problem. And Braun-Duin in his deck has the ability to tutor up Slime, Thragtusk, Progenitor Mimic, And that doesn't sound like much of a package, but I mean, honestly, that does solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, he also has an Aetherling if he chooses to go for it, or Angel Serenity. It's pretty good in his deck, as well as the fact that in Reanimator Mirrors, obviously Garruk's important because you want to go after their mana creatures because the deck's very mana intensive. So serves a lot of roles, especially in Brian's deck, both as a tutor effect and just slowing the game down a little bit so that those clones can really make an impact in the mid game.
If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Osip Lebedovich, and this is the second round of the Star City Games Open Series featuring Standard today in Nashville, Tennessee. Domri Rod is currently on the screen to show what Alan Cohen's in the lower corner there, what that card does. This card will continuously tick up, looking at the top card of his library, finding creatures, puts them in the hand, otherwise they stay there, whatever that spell or land is.
And again, a very powerful card against control decks. Not particularly devastating against Brian's deck, just because Brian has these late game spells where it doesn't really care that much about a Domri Rod. But hopefully Alan can start digging for some cards like Thundermaw Hellkite or Aurelia to kind of get him back into this match.
Now, his list is kind of crazy in some ways. 4 Primordial Hydras. I've played this card before in Standard. It's actually a card that can beat down pretty heavily, but it takes time to become a big beater. I mean, Tajik, Blade of the Legion, Gore-Clan Rampager, Predator Ooze. There are some interesting creature choices in here.
And it looks like Alan's swinging with the Avacyn Pilgrim. We can see in his hand he does have a Gore-Clan Rampager, which he can Bloodthirst, or rather Blood Rush, in order to give the Avacyn Pilgrim +4/+4 and trample. So he has a way to deal with the Garruk Relentless that is currently flipped on Brian's side of the board.
Are you thinking back to 2006 when we had Bloodthirst?
Yeah.
Ooh, those were some good days.
Let's bring that mechanic back.
And we have a Restoration Angel here. It's block and then flicker away the blocking Avacyn's Pilgrim.
So it looks like Alan chooses not to activate the Rampage, not to discard the Rampager. We know he has just a land on top of his deck from... is he just going to play the Rampager here? It doesn't have many options. He has a land and a Rampager in his hand, and we know he has another land on top of his deck. And he's going to have to deal with this Garruk pretty soon. And I think he might have wanted to just discard the Rampager. It looks like Brian's thinking whether or not he wants to block. So it looks like the Restoration Angel came in
that was before
pre-blocks.
Pre-blocks, okay.
So now we're going to get the block. Brian is playing around Rampager, very knows enough here. So
there it is.
A reasonable turn for Brian. He's going to lose his Restoration Angel only, but he's going to keep his Garruk in play. He's going to lose both creatures because of the 5/5.
And the Garruk is still around, and that's just fine by Brian.
Brian can choose to tutor now if he chooses, or just make another wolf, and then just cast another. He has a Restoration Angel. We know he has a Progenitor Mimic in his hand as well, which he can cast if he chooses.
Now, how insane here if he starts going... I don't know if he has a Thragtusk in his hand, but if he wants to, he could go retrieve a Thragtusk. And then, if a Mimic Thragtusk gets going, what on earth can Alan Cohen do?
Yeah, I think Brian kind of wants to just attack with the Pilgrim here, sack it to get a Thragtusk and play Thragtusk, because it leaves him the world of options next turn. You know, he could sack the Thragtusk to the Garruk in search of something else. He can cast Progenitor Mimic. He can Restoration Angel it. So looks like that is what he's going to be doing here. He's going to be attacking the Pilgrim and sacking it. We'll see if he goes for the Thragtusk right here. Yep. There's the Thragtusk. Looks like we're going to see a Thragtusk this turn. And Alan, in pretty rough shape here. He's going to be drawing a land. He has another activation of Domri Rod, which he's going to have to hit something. He's going to have to hit a Aurelia.
The haste is going to be a huge thing. I mean,
he's got some powerful creatures. He's got some powerful creatures he can draw. But the problem is that Brian has a lot of clone effects in his deck. So Aurelia can be easily dealt with a Progenitor Mimic or a clone, and he has a Garruk that is flipped, so he can start searching for anything he needs. So Alan's in a tough spot right here. Misses again with the Domri Rod. 2 lands in hand, facing down a Thragtusk and a flipped Garruk Relentless.
It's soon to be real danger times here for Alan. I mean, pass.
Yeah, pass. And Brian's in pretty comfortable shape here because he knows Naya doesn't have a lot of instant spells that he has to be afraid of. He knows he's missing with the Diamond Rod, so in all likelihood, there just lands in his hand. He can cast Progenitor Mimic here pretty comfortably, makes a copy, and on his upkeep, he's going to be starting to make more and more Thragtusk because of the Progenitor Mimic's ability. We'll bring Progenitor Mimic up on the screen for you. You can see here, it's effectively a clone, but it's a very powerful clone because it has the added ability of, at the beginning of your upkeep, if this creature isn't a token, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of this creature. So he effectively is going to be able to, he's going to be streaming out copies of Thragtusk.
Now, you have to imagine, Brian Braun-Duin, he wins the SCG event in, was it Newark?
I believe it was Edison, maybe.
Edison.
One of the jerseys.
Yeah. It was just 2 weeks ago, I believe.
No, that was Van Meter.
Van Meter.
His
You're
partner
right.
in crime.
His partner in crime. Good point. So Van Meter wins this. His partner in crime, as you say, and they are already people that are on the reanimation concept, and we're mastering the format with it. For him to switch, for Brian Braun-Duin to switch when he already has access to this deck he knows very well, I think it says a lot about the power of his deck choice.
Well, I think Brian, with all the clone effects and the Garruk Relentless main, it looks like his deck's pretty well positioned against Reanimator. So it's not surprising to me that maybe he thinks, you know what, people are going to start to realize how powerful Reanimator is. I'm just going to play a deck that's designed to beat it.
Now, you can see on play Ruben Bressler, a token. Now, interestingly, he just came over to let us have a little bit of his knowledge, his wisdom. What is it? It's that this is about what?
Acidic Slime.
Yeah.
And again, that's a card that we've known BBD and Van Meter have felt is really a key card in this format. Very powerful effect, especially against Reanimator decks, against control decks. And his deck is basically designed to cast Acidic Slime and then clone it multiple times.
Yeah. Now, if you've ever been on the receiving end of endless acidic slimes, via whatever method, it's just one of those unfun ways to be playing Magic. And if Brian Braun-Duin and Chris Van Meter are anything like me, my favorite way to play Magic is to have my opponent be sad.
Yeah. You want your opponent to feel miserable so that they'll hopefully be on tilt and just make terrible plays for the rest of the game.
I mean, I want them to play as poorly as I often do, and one of the best ways to do it is to make sure that they're just totally sad and over there completely already decided that the game is over and lost. Okay, here we go.
Speaking of annoying creatures,
Boom.
here's Angel of Serenity.
That's going to do a lot, actually.
It can, it's one of those cards. It's obviously, it's probably the most powerful creature in Standard right now, I'd say. Can definitely start to bring things, to switch things back in Brian's favor. Unfortunately, he does have the Restoration Angel for the Progenitor Mimic, which is going to be able to copy an Angel Serenity here.
Okay, Alan Cohen, not particularly happy with this state of affairs.
This is arguably the trickiest deck in Standard right now. This and Aristocrats Act 2, I would say, are probably the decks that allow you the most tricky things to do during a match.
Alan Cohen returning to his hand the, I believe returning to his hand the Hydra that he targeted.
And this is going to get somewhat embarrassing on Brian's upkeep because he's going to be able to put another Angel Serenity copy into play. So things are going to get out of hand here very quickly.
It looks out of hand already.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Osip Lebedovich, and this is SCG Live. You can tweet to us, join in the conversation at SCG Live. Use the hashtag SCGNASH, and we see the handshake from Alan Cohen. Brian Braun-Duin takes it down a quick 2-0 on the back of an incredible game we just watched there, and then also the sad, frowny